my parents couldn't have known when I was 12 that, video content was going to be more one day than just moving out to Hollywood. And I know that they didn't want me to leave. They wouldn't have wanted me to move. I live in Tennessee. I would have had to move across the country, but they let me do that. You know what I mean? Even at a time where it was completely not feasible for that to be something you could do for a living without going across the country. So, so no matter how ridiculous it seems or unfeasible or whatnot, just let them do whatever it is that you can tell makes them feel alive, and join them in it. Like show excitement and pride that they're working on it.
Welcome to Homeschool Talks, a podcast by HSLDA. This is a show about all things homeschooling, from practical tips to inspiring stories and everything in between. This episode of Homeschool Talks features a conversation originally hosted live on our Facebook page. So if you like what you hear, be sure to follow us there for more content like this. We're so glad you've joined us today, and we hope you enjoy the program.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Lorrig, and I serve as the Deputy Director of HSLDA's Generation Joshua, a youth outreach program for your students. Joining me today is Joshua Taylor, and he's a homeschool grad, creator of Blimey Cow, the YouTube channel, and most recently, the founder of Homeschool With Us, an online community for homeschool parents. So Josh, thanks again for taking the time to talk with us here today. Will you share a little bit about yourself and your family to get us kicked off?
Sure. Just became a dad a couple of years ago, or I guess almost 3 years now. Our son is turning 3 next month. So we've got a couple of boys now. So that's kind of how I'm currently fitting into this homeschool world. We're getting ready to start homeschooling ourselves. But we were homeschooled growing up. I got married pretty young when I was 21 or 22. So my wife and I, Kelly, have been married for nearly 12 years now. And just grew up homeschooling and made a YouTube channel that did a lot of homeschooling focused content, especially in the early days. And one or two of those videos blew up about 10 years ago and kind of gained us the initial audience that sort of propelled us to where we're at today, where we kind of get to branch out and try all sorts of different things. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me, Jeremiah. I'm always grateful when our paths cross.
Yes, great to see you again. Can you tell me a little bit about your homeschooling experience? Like what were some of the things that you did and really enjoyed about that part of your life?
Yeah. I don't remember having many moments where I wish I was in public school, or I wish I was in private school. And this was even, back in the 90s when it was a lot less likely that you had a lot of friends that were homeschooled. Most of my friends growing up were not homeschooled. But I loved the freedom that it afforded me. We would, get our schoolwork done early. Me and my younger brother and younger sister, we would get our schoolwork done quickly, and then we just go outside with the home video camera and we just make videos. And my parents, I think, understood that that's what I was passionate about, and so they allowed us the freedom to exercise those creative muscles, which I really appreciated. So my homeschooling experience was fantastic. Even in those older days of homeschooling, I guess we were probably like the second or maybe third mainstream generation of homeschoolers in the 90s. But I remember it, hearing stories of my parents that, that was a tough choice for them back in those days, because you didn't have as much support certainly as you do now. So yeah, it was a fantastic experience. I loved it.
That's great. I relate to the motivation. My parents were able to find that I was motivated by running outside and playing that I was like some sort of war hero usually, or dragon slayer. I had a very active imagination. And so they discovered that was something that really motivated me. So the promise was I could go and play outside when I got my schoolwork done. And you would be amazed at when I didn't have that motivation, especially math would take me hours and hours of laborious work. But when I had the motivation, that when I'm done, I could go outside. Oh my goodness, I was done by noon.
Yes.
It was great.
I can relate to that wholeheartedly.
So you mentioned in high school that you were homeschooled. What were some of your goals and some of the things that you wanted to chase after in those high school years?
I was definitely very interested in video creation, content creation. I am very blessed and grateful that I grew up in a time where you began to see cameras and video editing software come down in price quite a bit, where it wasn't completely out of the realm of possibility that a kid could start editing. And now, it's anybody really can do it with an iPhone. You can do most anything on there. But in those days, in the early 2000s and late 90s, it was not that way. So it was a big deal if you got a hold of a video editing program that ran on your computer. So my aspirations for video creation weren't super thought out, because I really just thought, back then that just meant going out to Hollywood. Essentially, if you wanted to go do videos and movies, you had to go out to Hollywood. So I was more interested in maybe getting into radio and television production, because we had local Christian TV networks in this area. And I went to a college that had a radio station at the time. So going into college, for a while, I hosted a weeknight radio show, but I'd already gotten a TV job. So during the days, I did my TV job, and at night, I went to the radio station. I did all my college work, and I had to talk with the counselors at the school and basically say, hey, I've already got 2 jobs in my field. I guess I'm going to need like directive studies or something. So thankfully, they let me do that, where I was basically doing all of my classes to finish out my diploma, directed studies. So I would go to work for 8 hours a day, then immediately drive to my college, do my 4-hour radio show at the end of the night, and between songs, I would do all my schoolwork. So for a minute there, it was quite a lot going on, but we got it all done.
So that's really interesting how you wanted to be in the creative field and you found some great avenues to do that. But in the end, you did end up in video. So tell us, how did Blimey Cow start? How did you end up driving down that road?
So we had started that in high school, basically around the time that YouTube started. Once YouTube and a couple other platforms started saying, hey, you can upload video content and people can share it, I was like, this is all I've ever wanted. I'm so excited about this. So we started making video content. That started in 2005 when I was about 17 years old. And, back then, there was no idea of it being a career path. It was just a fun thing you could do with your siblings or your friends. And so I went to college to do the right thing, to go become a professional. And, at the time that meant working in television or working in radio, or if you were willing to move out to California, maybe doing movies. Those were the career paths at that time. And so I got out of college. Obviously, I couldn't do my radio station job anymore. I wasn't in college. So that didn't work out. I wasn't super happy at the TV station I was working at. I began instead I quit that job and started working with my dad, doing patent draftsman work, patent drawings. And with the time, now I was working from home. So with the time that I had, I found myself getting back into the video stuff and saying, I've had some friends have a little success on YouTube. It's not just their friends watching. Now they have a bigger audience. So maybe that could be us too. So maybe if we committed to doing a video every week, we could talk about relatable topics. Maybe we could have some success as well. And so once we started doing weekly shows, and we even came up with a series that would be clear that it was coming every week. And we called that show Messy Mondays. So people knew, hey, at the start of your week, we got a show where we're going to talk about relatable topics. It wasn't too long after we started that show, I believe it had been like 6 months or so, that we did a video called 7 Lies About Homeschoolers, which to this day is still one of our most popular videos. It was really the first time we addressed homeschooling on our channel, which we thought was like a niche thing. We didn't think it would have this widespread appeal that it did. But we were very excited to find out that it did have a widespread appeal, because we were like, this is great, because this is the world we know. This is the culture we know. So if you guys are excited about that content, and there's a lot of people that want to watch it, we know what kind of videos to make. And so we've kind of just been, in one way or another, talking to that audience ever since then, and kind of filling this void that I think others have started to fill too. But for a time, it felt like we were the only ones on the internet that were sort of giving a voice or a soundtrack to this generation of homeschoolers who had grown up and were annoyed that everybody assumed all homeschoolers were sheltered. And so it was kind of a fun way to make jokes about, hey, we're not that sheltered, but also kind of like a wink and a nod. But yeah, we are kind of sheltered, at the same time. Like, but it's okay because we're in on the joke. So when we say it, we're not making fun, we're just relating to you. And so a lot of people resonated with that, and it's been so much fun over the last 10 years getting to make those videos. And so yeah, we've put out at least one video a week since for the last 10 years. I guess we haven't taken a week off, and a lot of weeks we make more than one video a week. So it's kept us busy, and it's been fun being so consistent with it.
So I have two observations on that. Number one, you mentioned that you were working from home, and that was before it was cool. So it sounds like working from home actually opened up a new venue for creative work, for investing in the creative side of things there for you.
Yeah. It was not unlike being homeschooled, where it was sort of this idea of, hey, if I wake up early and get all my work done for the day, I could just work on videos. I don't have, somebody, I'm not at an office, somebody looking over my shoulder. And, I think that the going to work, I think there's a utility to that. And for specific kinds of people, I think that's probably the best way to advance and to go about life. But for somebody like me, I just don't thrive in that environment. It stresses me out. I like to kind of be in control of my schedule, and I find that I get a lot more done that way. So yeah, I do think that, especially now, we're kind of in a time where people have a lot of freedom to kind of explore their own entrepreneurism, if they so choose, maybe more so than we've ever had before.
That's interesting that you're kind of drawing a comparison between working at home and schooling at home, homeschooling.
Yeah.
And how both of them have the ability to open up opportunities for you and creativity in particular.
Yeah. I hate to say that'll be true for everybody, but that is certainly true for me. And I'm guessing to some degree, it's probably true for you too, Jeremiah. And I think a lot of people that kind of work in like a space where, like maybe an opportunity lost means that now you have a chance to make other opportunities happen. But I know that for a lot of folks, maybe, 9 to 5 works for them, and they enjoy that, and they like being a part of a greater whole that's working towards a common goal. That's just never been me. I like to be out on my own, doing my own thing, and I think
that's pretty common for creative types.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's a chicken and egg situation where I am that way because I was homeschooled growing up, or if I just happen to benefit greatly from homeschooling because I was already that way. You know what I mean? So,
and oftentimes I find that it's a little bit of both in reality. That we can rightfully add those things together. Another thing you mentioned, which I think is interesting, you said that there's now more people in that space, more YouTubers or content creators that are talking about the homeschooling thing. And it actually reminded me of one of our Generation Joshua alum I was talking to just a couple days ago. And he said that a few years ago, he put out his own YouTube content that he was pretty proud of. And he said that he thought of himself as kind of the next generation Blimey Cow. So yeah, I think part of what we are seeing is that you've actually inspired people to step into that space.
Wow.
It's pretty cool to see.
I mean,
I think
that's quite an honor if that is indeed true. I mean, that's always, people. We had a lot of people in the early days when, obviously our videos don't get nearly the number of views they used to get. Back then we were the only ones kind of doing this sort of thing, and there was a lot less content on YouTube. You know what I mean? So we're now at a time where there's a lot more stuff on the internet, and also to one degree or another, we've been around the block. You know what I mean? So yeah, we have a core audience that enjoys our work, and we still expand out, but it certainly, the heyday was in the past. But it is interesting because I remember in that heyday we had a lot of management companies and people coming to us and saying, you've got this brief moment, you've got to capitalize on this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. And it was all kind of working in this old school system of, like, record labels and TV shows, and here's how you do all this stuff. And I remember I've always had this common ethic, which was that I was like, I don't want our videos to be super popular. I just want to have integrity with the stuff that we make. I have content that I've always enjoyed on the internet from different creators that I know if they had, quote unquote, sold out or done things a little differently, they could have been a lot more popular. But it was more important to them to keep their integrity about their work. And so that was always the space that I wanted to occupy, because I knew long term that would be better than maybe making a few thousand more dollars this year. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful that seems to have been how it played out as we've gotten older.
Yeah, well, that's pretty phenomenal. And one thing that you filled in that space was the really funny content that was something that families could share together. It wasn't just adult humor or teenage humor, or, anything like that. It kind of had that full range of humor. So it makes me wonder: did you have any comedic inspirations that you would lean on, either for the method or the way to reach an audience, or maybe you saw some people who were reaching just one segment of the community and you're like, oh, well, we could reach that down to this area as well. Like, what kind of comedic inspiration did you guys draw on?
Mm-hmm. I mean, growing up, the first video content that I found that was consistent was a website called Homestar Runner. I don't know if you watched Homestar. Yeah, so Homestar Runner, and I mean, those guys, they were asked repeatedly. That's just a cartoon show, and they all, this is back before YouTube, so it was all animation done in Flash and on their website. They didn't really promote it. The only way to find out about it was if you had friends who watched it, and we all watched it. We loved it. We got excited every week when they put out new videos. And I remember always hearing that, those guys were approached by Cartoon Network and all these different Nickelodeon to bring the show to television, but they never did it because they didn't want to ruin the integrity of their show, and they just sold merch. They just always sold merch. That was how they made their money. And that always resonated with me greatly. To this day, I look up to those guys. And I hope they know that they made the right choice with that stuff. But yeah, so Homestar Runner, I really enjoyed growing up. And I remember that when YouTube started, the two pieces of content that we were enjoying the most were Napoleon Dynamite was popular at the time. And then the American version of The Office had just started. And I was very excited about that show because it was shot in a documentary style, which I was like, hey, you can simulate that with a home video camera, so we could start a mockumentary style show. And so that was the kind of content we made. So those were the main sort of, anything that was sort of dry, deadpan, that felt a little like do it yourself. I always really appreciated that kind of content. And I always appreciated any sort of comedians that really made you think. That maybe took you to the edge of something you were uncomfortable with, and then made you laugh about it, and then kind of made you happy that they took you there, even if you you didn't feel comfortable about the fact that you were led there, if that makes sense. But most of those comedians are very crude and foul. So I was, I was always wanting to create some content that talked about those ideas, but in a way that was easily shareable with families. And that seemed fun and cool, because I was just trying to make content that I would have appreciated growing up. So that was kind of the thought process behind that.
That's great. And it sounds like family has kind of been a consistent theme, making entertainment, good humorous entertainment for families. Your family, you were working with mostly your family throughout these Blimey Cow years. What was that like to kind of have that family creative project?
I've never really had a time where I wasn't working with my brother or sister or both on video stuff. So I don't really know any differently. You hear about, I have friends and they don't really get along with their siblings, and it's like I don't even know what that would be like. It's so strange. But I'm grateful that because video stuff was always sort of my thing. But I think that because I was the oldest, they went along with it because it was like, hey, Josh wants to play with me. And I did. I loved playing with my siblings and getting to spend time with them. So I'm grateful that, I just feel so blessed that it's continued to now where, Jordan and I, my brother, we just get to make content. We get to still bring my sister in sometimes. We've kind of continued that mockumentary style show that we started back in the very early days of our channel, and she's one of our actresses in that show. So we don't do that often, but whenever our paths get to cross that way, it's always fun. It's just a blast. I'm so grateful, and I'm grateful to kind of have this time capsule. When we get older and our kids are grown, they can look back and see their mom and dad and aunt and uncles, and like we were doing this stuff, and that it was fun and cool. I'm proud of all of it. I think that probably there's a lot of people making video content that they're not going to want their kids to watch, but I'm grateful. Like I'll be able to show them pretty much everything we've ever done and be proud of it. So yeah.
That's great. So do you see your life and career unfolding differently if you had not been homeschooled?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that I would certainly at least be delayed in what I was working on, because I even felt that way about going to college a little bit. In hindsight, I think, man, if I had just given 100% to the YouTube channel a few years previous, instead of feeling like I had to go get a real job or whatever, maybe we would have been further along. I don't know. Or maybe we just happened to get lucky just at the right time. You know what I mean? Everything works out the way it's supposed to. But yeah, I definitely, certainly the exact way my life turned out, where the kind of the linchpin of the whole thing was making a video about homeschooling, that kind of blew up our channel. So, everything works out the way it's supposed to, and works out for a reason. So, but certainly my parents giving us the freedom to just go do what we wanted to do, and not stop us. Hey, you guys are being too obnoxious out there. Stop yelling, stop, just to be aware that no, we're making a video. It's okay. Don't worry what got damaged. It's fine.
It was intentional, probably.
It was intentional. It was a prop. So yeah, I would always be grateful for the fact that I grew up at the time when homeschooling was just starting to come into its own, and that my parents happened to go learn more about it and happened to decide to take that plunge and allow us to do that. I'm just so grateful. I'll never not be grateful for that.
So there's a lot of people who are watching or listening to this, and their kids are very creative, or maybe they want to grow up to be an influencer or something like that. Do you have any advice for parents of high schoolers or high school students who would be interested in content creation and entrepreneurship and kind of pursuing these creative dreams?
Yeah, I think, it's tougher now than it used to be, because there's just so much craziness out there. There's so much. There was a time where I could just say, yeah, just let your kids consume as much content as possible, because that's what I did. I learned by watching people who knew what they were doing do it. And that's a little tougher now because social media is so all encompassing, and I feel like a lot of people just get popular, on Instagram or on TikTok. And I don't think that's not necessarily, that doesn't have to be a bad thing, but I think certainly a lot of times, it can get kind of dicey real quick. So I guess if I was going to offer some advice about that, I would just say, if you can tell that your child is really interested in doing some kind of creative project, specifically maybe like video or content creation, that kind of thing, I would say equip them with the physical tools that they need to do it correctly. A lot of people just use their phones now, but if you can do the research and find the camera that your kid needs, or the microphone they need to really take their content to the next level, I think that's a great investment. And the cameras don't normally lose too much value as time goes on, maybe a little bit. So you can always sell it if they change their mind or don't really care. But if you don't mind, investing financially and getting them the equipment they need to, and they'll tell you, if they'll do the research and say, hey, if I had my dream list of things, I would need this camera or this mic. Just instead of whatever money was going to be spent on XYZ thing related to homeschooling, just say, hey, I'm gonna pick you up a camera.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is unique about your situation is you were kind of a trailblazer in a new field, a new era of entertainment. And there's going to always be a new field that's popping up.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts for somebody who's stepping into something that's really unstable? It's brand new, whatever today might be TikTok, tomorrow might be something else, but whatever that new area is, what were some of those maybe big picture ideas that kind of guided you through to some level of success?
Doing a lot of writing in whatever capacity you can. I remember when I was growing up, I wrote a lot of CD reviews for a website that I enjoyed. So any kind of writing you can do, and then learning about storytelling. Both of those things, those are never going away.
Whether it's Homer writing the Iliad or the latest TikToker who's
right.
telling what happened to them yesterday.
Right.
It all fits into that basic how to tell a good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are methods you can use to be an engaging storyteller. And you're right. Whether you're writing a book, or you're just telling us, you're trying to tell a story in 10 seconds as best as you can. You know what I mean? So anything you can do to encourage a student to learn the fundamentals of storytelling, and give them the experience writing. And it doesn't have to be, book reports or things that kids don't really care about writing, but experience in any kind of writing that they actually enjoy. Because I grew up thinking that I didn't like writing, which is really funny because of how much writing I did. But to me, in school, writing is writing book reports, or in college, it's writing a research paper, all these things that were just not fun to me at all. But I think I would have benefited from, and I mean, it worked out either way, but I think I would have benefited from being given assignments that said, hey, today I want you to write a story about XYZ with certain parameters, and can you make a compelling story within these parameters in a set amount of time? I would love that kind of thing. In that way, sometimes within our Blimey Cow community, we run film contests. You have three days to write, shoot, and edit a movie and submit it. And I think that's just a great exercise. You learn so much so quickly because you've literally created an entire thing. Whether or not you like it or are proud of it, you created it and you learned a lot along the way. So, yeah.
Oh, and finding creative ways to get people engaged in writing. I remember one college professor I had. We were studying political philosophy of the French Revolution, and he was like, "You can write a standard research paper on this topic, or And he kind of leans forward and looks through the room and he's like, or you can write a pamphlet, a French Revolutionary War pamphlet defending the French Revolution. You don't have to actually believe it, but I want you to show me that you understand the spirit of the age. And I was like, challenge accepted.
Yeah,
I'm definitely doing that. And it was a lot of fun to jump in and kind of examine the kind of the mentality, not just the facts, but the mentality of the people, the spirit of the people who were jumping in there. And
that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, you've now moved to a kind of a new phase. You're continuing in that entrepreneurial spirit that you've been demonstrating ever since you were in high school, and you've got a new community called Homeschool With Us, and it's for homeschool parents. Could you tell us about that? What is the big picture there?
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially the elevator pitch is just that we have created an alternative to Facebook groups. So a couple of years ago, I think my son would have just turned 1. And this was right before the 2020 election. I just became very stressed out with social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of it. And, I'm not like hugely popular influencer or whatever, but I had a good following on those platforms. But I just found that it stressed me out to use them, specifically Facebook. And at the time, our Blimey Cow supporter community was located in Facebook groups. And I found that I was less engaged with those groups because I had to navigate around Facebook to get to it. And I just didn't like it. I didn't really like the toxicity or I don't know. Everybody's so angry. And so I just one day on a whim just said, you know what? I'm just going to delete all of my social media. And so I did it. And I haven't looked back and it's felt great. I've really enjoyed it. But I realized that I now did not have an online community of homeschooling for like a homeschooling support group of sorts, because I started asking around like, hey, what do you do? Like, what do you do? And other homeschooling parents said, oh, well, I'm in a Facebook group. That's what I heard over and over again. And I said, but isn't it just stressful, like being on Facebook? I mean, I know a lot of people use it still. And I think that it still does a lot for building community. I think it does a lot. There's a lot of good that happens there. Certainly we're broadcasting on Facebook right now. So there's still a lot of good utility to it. But I wanted to create an alternative for people like me that weren't on Facebook, or that just wanted a dedicated community, that the whole website is dedicated specifically around homeschooling and for homeschooling parents. I was like, man, no, I don't think anybody's ever done that. That's a really cool idea. So I started kind of doing the research. I started talking to interested parents and doing surveys and stuff, finding out what they would need, and kind of slowly and then all at once it came together, and we started Homeschool With Us in January. So the website is homeschoolwithus.com, and essentially it's a membership. It's $5 a month, and that's basically to pay for the upkeep of the website, and then also to keep trolls out. So anybody that's there has skin in the game. And so one of the things I was worried about was, well, are we going to see the bad parts of Facebook kind of creep in to this website? And so far it has not been that way. Everybody is super cordial and friendly. And I really think it's because everybody there feels a sense of ownership in what is being built, which is really great, because that's been my experience with our Blimey Cow supporter community as well. So yeah, Homeschool With Us, I mean, it's essentially just it looks a lot like Facebook, truthfully. And it's just it's a community. It's a social network that's dedicated specifically to homeschooling parents and to encourage them and support them. We've got different channels for the different parts of homeschooling that you might have questions about, whether you need advice on curriculum. Maybe there's somebody else that has used that curriculum and can help you out.
Is this predominantly for new homeschoolers or
no,
experienced homeschoolers?
Right. So great question. So one of the things when you join the website is you're prompted to let us know, are you a future homeschooling parent? Are you a current homeschooling parent? Or are you a veteran homeschooling parent? So, currently my tier is that I'm a future homeschooling parent. And so this is an easy way for people, because so every time you make a post, it says under your name, like where you're at in the journey. It's fantastic. So a lot of times, you'll see a veteran homeschooling parent like comment on a post, and it's like, oh, okay, this is somebody who's been doing this a long time. So, it's a great little identifier. It's been really good. And I've noticed, I really thought it would mostly be currently homeschooling parents, and it is, but there are a lot of future and veteran homeschooling parents that have joined too, which is awesome, because I think there's a lot of people like me who are in that future category, who are not homeschooling yet, but are excited about it and want to build as much knowledge and wisdom as they can now. I basically, in
So
one
you're
sentence,
recruiting veterans because you want their wisdom. You're recruiting the soon-to-be homeschoolers so that they can get that wisdom, and then everybody else can just be interacting and engaging and sharing their best practices and ideas.
Exactly. And everybody
This sounds like a great community.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I've been I was a little worried about what sort of the vibe of the community would be, but I've been just so encouraged. Building our Blimey Cow supporter community was such an interesting lesson, and we finally created a website a couple of years ago. When I left social media, I had to create a whole website because we weren't on Facebook anymore. And so I was like, man, I've learned so much about community building on a dedicated platform. I wonder if I can take those lessons and move it to homeschooling parents. And I just didn't know, when dealing with a somewhat older group of people, how that would translate, but it ended up translating like perfectly. I've been so grateful. It's been fantastic. I I wanted to create the community that I was going to need once I started homeschooling. So that's sort of been my ethic the whole time we're working on it. And it's great.
Your pitch is that this is a great experience for everybody, but really it's your cry for help. Please help me. I'm going to need this so bad.
I need this to be perfect in 2 years. No, I mean, it's already fantastic. And in fact, like, I'll give you a quick example. We had to replace this circuit breaker box in our house, so an electrician had to come out, and so our electricity was out for a day. And so my son Isaac, who's almost 3, was very interested in all this, and so I was telling him, yeah, the electricity comes from the street, and so they turned it off so they could work on it. So ever since then, Isaac points out electricity everywhere he wants to talk about it. And then there was one night, there was a storm, and our electricity went out, and that was very traumatizing for him. So we talk about that night that happened all the time.
Well, so it sounds to me like you're not a future homeschooler. You're a current homeschooler. You're just teaching some of those foundational things that they get before kindergarten.
Exactly. So I made a post in the group, and I said, hey, I've got an almost 3-year-old who is just like fascinated with electricity. What tools or what things can I get him? And there were a lot of really great suggestions of different toys and crafts and kits that you can get, that obviously I would have to, he'd be too young to do it on his own, because that has to do with electricity and could get shocked or whatever. But things that I could do with him to kind of engage with him. Obviously he's so young, he's just interested in everything. But I'm so excited about as he gets older, like if I notice things that he's interested in, and being like, hey, let me do what my parents did and just
feed into that.
Go for it. You know what I mean? Like I'm so pumped about that.
That's great. I love that personal story touch. Like that just kind of makes the group come alive in my imagination. So if people in our audience want to sign up, what's kind of the process to do that?
Yeah, you just go to homeschoolwithus.com. There are different tiers on there, but the main one is $5 a month, and you get a little discount if you purchase annually. We have another one, another tier where you also get some video content that we're building up as well. And then for the next couple of days, for anybody watching this, you could I've also created an HSLDA members tier where you get a little bit more of a discount for the annual membership, but it's still already pretty cheap. So if you're seeing this later, it's just $5 a month, or I believe $50 for the year. But it's very nice and easy and simple. And we even do like a 3-day trial, so you can check it out before you commit. But we're having a blast over there. We're over 200 members strong already, and I'm really excited to see how much it grows by the time my kids are truly in preschool, kindergarten. It's already such a blessing, and I'm very humbled and honored and grateful to be a part of building a community like this.
So what has been your favorite part of working with Homeschool With Us?
Just the friendships that have already been created. It's really great. Every good thing that we had with our Blimey Cow supporter community has just come right over to this. So it's just been great. I was worried that I was going to have to do a lot of apologizing, like, hey, sorry, I know we were saying we were going to do something like this, but we've ended up having to change it. I'm really sorry. I know we're trying to make this professional and stuff, but everybody's just been, no, Josh, we want this to succeed. Like we're not, everybody's attitude has been sort of this, we're not here and looking to be angry if it's not perfect. We're here because we want this to be successful. Like we want the way that you want this in the world, we want this in the world. So everybody having that attitude has just made it great.
It sounds like you've got like you're entrepreneurial yourself, but it sounds like you've got an entrepreneurial community that's stepping in, and it sounds like you're going to have to make like a tier of recognition for our first 1,000 members. Yeah. Like they get a special badge or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Now we keep mentioning Blimey Cow, and it's nagging at the back of my mind. Why Blimey Cow? Where's the name Blimey come from? Like what's the story here? Tell me this. Please answer these questions.
We just I don't know. When you're like a kid and you just have words that you and your friends say all the time. Those two words were Blimey and cow for some reason. We and our friends always said. So I just combined them and we just like, what's the goofiest name we could think of? And we just called it Blimey Cow. I wish it was a more exciting story than that, but we were so young. I'm grateful I wasn't any older because I would have probably tried to come up with something like professional. But so now we're just kind of stuck with this
like Homeschool With Us.
Yeah, exactly. I was so excited when I was like, is homeschoolwithus.com taken? Oh my gosh, it's not. Okay, that's the name of the website. That was when I decided we were going to do the website. I was like, wow, that's such a perfect name. But yeah, I'm sorry that the Blimey Cow name
See, I was picturing like some sort of like, because I picture somebody with a British accent saying Blimey and a cow. And so I'm like picturing this British cow that's like, Sherlock Holmes with a pipe and hat or something. But alas, I'll just go with your two favorite ridiculous words.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to new parents who are looking at like they've got young kids, they want to foster a creative community for their kids, an entrepreneurial community for their kids. I'm guessing one thing they can do is they can get on Homeschool With Us and ask for advice there. But what would your encouragement be for people with small kids like yours that might have a creative bent?
Yeah. I mean, I'll mostly speak from my experience being a kid versus my experience being a parent because I still feel very new and ill-equipped at this whole thing, but I'm working on it. But I mean, it's mostly what I've already said. It's just, if you notice that your kid wants to do something or is interested or excited about something, regardless of how silly or ridiculous it seems, just have at it. Let them do it. My parents couldn't have known when I was 12 that, video content was going to be more one day than just moving out to Hollywood. And I know that they didn't want me to leave. They wouldn't have wanted me to move. I live in Tennessee. I would have had to move across the country, but they let me do that. You know what I mean? Even at a time where it was completely not feasible for that to be something you could do for a living without going across the country. So, so no matter how ridiculous it seems or unfeasible or whatnot, just let them do whatever it is that you can tell makes them feel alive and join them in it. Like show excitement and pride that they're working on it. Because
Yeah, that goes right along with Lulu, who just commented. She said, "My advice is when they're young, observe their interests and then encourage those and nurture those interests." And it sounds like that's was your experience that kind of unlocked so much potential for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's so much promise. There's so much potential when a kid is interested in electricity.
Yeah, as I'm going off of the premise that my son wants to be an electrician, and until he gets onto something else, I'm just going to treat it like, hey, if you want to learn about electricity, so we're constantly finding YouTube videos that kind of explain electricity to children and stuff, and he'll sit there for like 15 minutes and just be completely engaged. Kids' minds are it's very cool to watch. I've loved being a parent. It's been great.
It sounds to me like he's going to grow up to be like Benjamin Franklin.
It could be. Yeah.
Flying kites and touching keys and, just changing the world. Well, do you have any exciting upcoming plans for the platform before we get to questions? And everybody, we'll get to questions here in just a second. But Josh, what's kind of the next stage that you see this Homeschool With Us branching out in?
Right now we're most interested in bringing as many new members to the site as possible, because as I tell the people that are already there, the more people here, the more value there is for everybody that's here, because there's more perspectives, more experiences being shared. One of my dreams for the site is that there will be so many people there that you can fill in where you're from, that people can basically create local communities for their Homeschool With Us, for the Homeschool With Us members that they know. That's have meetups and do stuff like that. Have like homeschool meetups and that sort of thing. So but that's more of a long-term thing. In the short term, we're working on building up the site, figuring out what kinds of content that people are most interested in, and working on creating that content for the site. And my brother is working on a typing course that's you can show to your kids, and kind of if they want to learn how to type. Jordan went from being not a great typer to being able to type 100 words in just a few months. So he wanted to kind of explain his process of how he learned to do that. And I was like, well, that'd be a great typing course for the website. So he's like, oh, I want to do that. So he's in the middle of getting that worked on. So yeah, there's all kinds of exciting stuff going on this site. We'd love to have everybody there.
Awesome. Well, do you have some availability to take some questions?
I absolutely do. Sounds great.
Great. Well, we have one question that's coming in, and it says, Josh, how much has Kelly been an influence on Homeschool With Us? Has she been involved in this?
Oh yeah. Yes. Everything I've bounced off of her in terms of what I wanted to be, and she's helped me kind of like branch it out when it needed to be branched out, or hone it in when it got a little too crazy. So yeah, she's been super helpful and beneficial. It's kind of thing right now where we have almost 3-year-old and one who just turned 1. So we're sort of in that really crazy. It's hard for just one person to keep track of all the kids. So one of us is always working on something. I feel like, or we're both watching both kids. So, but yeah, whenever she has time and can, I'm always bouncing ideas off of her, and it's been great. I really appreciate her.
Great. Rachel online has also commented. She's asking if there's going to be any curriculum creation from Blimey Cow. And that leads to my bigger question. Do you think there's going to be any crossover or collaborations between Blimey Cow and Homeschool With Us?
Yeah, well, we haven't promoted it at all on Blimey Cow. I think as far as anybody who just watches this on YouTube, we haven't even announced what the project is yet. We just said we were announcing something several months ago, and we never. But I wanted to get things kind of worked out first, to where I felt comfortable advertising and talking about it. And so that's why we're talking here now. We're gonna probably next month is when we're gonna make our big push to promote it to the Blimey Cow audience. But yeah, we always have talked about doing some sort of video courses and curriculum and things like that with Blimey Cow. I think that we just sort of realized that that's maybe not our wheelhouse or not our passion, but we've always interested in doing one-off courses and things like that. So we realized, hey, it would be cool to create this website, which is more in our wheelhouse of like community creation, because we're good at that. And then if we want to post video content there, or courses or whatnot, that can be an added perk to the website versus like the thing in and of itself. So in terms of like an actual full-on curriculum, probably not, but we will be doing video courses and that in time. It just takes time to put that stuff together. So that and 1,000 other things, we're working on. So, but yeah, that's a good question. I appreciate it.
Cool. Well, I do some curriculum creation stuff with Generation Joshua. So if you ever want to collab there, just let me know.
Awesome. I will listen. Thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Another question that just came in is, Josh, are there any important stories that you still think to be told about homeschooling or from a homeschooler perspective?
Any important stories? Well, I mean, I still think I think over the last couple of years, it's finally started to shift. At least that's been my anecdotal experience, where you can talk about homeschooling and not kind of get that look. Anybody who's homeschooled knows what look I'm talking about. But yeah, I think that the mainstreaming of homeschooling, I think we're in the middle of it now, which is awesome and fantastic. I think for a long time, we always joked, we've made jokes on our videos, that I remember we did a video recently where it was a future version of my brother talking to himself in the past when we first made our first homeschooling video. And the future version of Jordan says, hey, how we were worried that that homeschooling was going to get banned or whatever? Well, now everybody is homeschooling in the future. So it went the opposite way. So but I think there are still certainly a lot of challenges and that sort of thing. And so I think that there are good stories that can be told in terms of kind of just creating, I hate the term like normalizing or whatever, but normalizing homeschooling in a way that it's just an option that you don't even blink when you hear it. So anything that can be done, any stories that can be told that maybe aren't even necessarily about homeschooling, but that contain just homeschooling as a component of a greater whole. I think that's beneficial, certainly.
Cool. So a question from Rachel. She says she's curious how you talk about homeschooling with family or friends or people who are skeptical about homeschooling or don't appreciate homeschooling.
Honestly, I haven't had much experience with that since I was younger. And I'm guessing maybe I'll run into that when we do start homeschooling our kids. But I mean, I honestly don't anticipate the public school system getting much better over the next few years. So I mean, if anything, it'll probably get worse too. So I mean, without getting too critical or whatever, you just say, well, look, I mean, it's not like the public school system is doing any better. So I would rather have a little bit more control over the kinds of things my kids are learning and the pace at which they're learning them. And I mean, mainly, I mean, if you want to make it more of a positive thing, you just say, look, nobody knows my child the way that I do. And so I can get help from co-ops and tutorials for subjects that I don't know as well. But I want to be able to hone my child's creativity and skills so that they can spend time on the things that are interesting to them. And
co-ops, tutorials, and Homeschool With Us. Don't want to forget that.
Yes, exactly. Of course, Homeschool With Us as well. It's going to be a huge component of the whole thing. I agree. Yeah. So, I mean, I just share your own experience. Say, look, I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without homeschooling. So I just want to pay it forward to my kids. I know.
Well, and like you said, there's opportunity that comes with that freedom to lean into your interests, to go outside and shoot video or basically fan the interests that are already there. And I just love the idea of this like small child. I'm picturing, I've not seen your child, but I'm picturing this small child with like lightning coming off his fingertips as he's just like living this life, chasing after this dream of what is electricity? Yeah. What is it truly?
We saw a Tesla in the parking lot of the grocery store the other day. I said, Isaac, that's an electric car. And he says, electricity car. And I said, yep, that's right. It's an electricity car.
There you go. He's getting it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Do you have any parting words of encouragement or closing thoughts for homeschooling parents at this time?
I appreciate anybody that watched, and especially anybody who's grown up watching our Blimey Cow videos and now is thinking about moving over to homeschoolwithus.com. I think about the Blimey Cow community as sort of the younger community, and then when you start getting married and start thinking about having kids, maybe the new community that you can join is the Homeschool With Us community. So I appreciate that, and anybody that is willing to join. In terms of advice, I mean, what I've already said, which I think is just so important, you got to just keep talking about it, which is just, if you've got kids that are passionate and interested in things, no matter how silly they seem, just let them go for it. If your child wants to make Lego stop motion videos in their room for 10 hours a day, let them do it. Let them do it. You might think it's silly or whatever, but with every frame and every movement, every shot they're taking, they're learning valuable lessons that they're gonna take with them. And it's better than them sitting on their phone watching TikTok. You know what I mean? So it's like anything you can do to hone the creativity and kind of keep them off of these more destructive social media trends, I think is a really positive thing going into the future. I'm very optimistic about the future, and I think homeschooling is one of, if not the biggest parts of that. So I'm grateful to be working in a space where I get to play some role in that. So I'm very grateful.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for taking time to share your story, to talk about Electricity Boy, and to and about your latest project, Homeschool With Us. We will definitely be posting the link to Homeschool With Us in the comments for everybody to check out. Parents, if you're looking ahead and wondering how you can help your kids find their passions and prepare them well for life's journey, HSLDA has created a lot of resources for you. There's including a whole series of articles called Helping My Teen Explore Career Options. We'll also put that link in the comments for you today. If you're not a member, we'd love to have you join us at hslda.org/join. And don't forget to check out homeschoolwithus.com. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Thanks again for taking this time with us, Josh. And I hope that you and everybody has a great day.
Today's program is made possible by HSLDA's team of educational consultants. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the number of curriculum options to choose from? Or maybe you're frustrated because your child is struggling and you're not sure what to do next. Our educational consultants can help. As an HSLDA member, you have access to customized, practical guidance on everything from lesson planning and record keeping to helping a child with learning difficulties. If you want to experience less frustration and more progress in your homeschool, get support from our educational consultants by becoming a member of HSLDA. Learn more at hslda.org/join. That's hslda.org/join. Thanks for listening to this episode of Homeschool Talks. If you enjoyed this conversation, leave a review to let us know what you think. To hear more conversations like this one, be sure to subscribe to this podcast or head on over to hslda.org/podcast for more inspiring stories and awesome ideas about homeschooling. That's all for today. We hope you enjoyed the program, and we'll see you next time.